Our next guest holds extensive and diverse experience in the Middle East and South Asian businesses and retains an expert opinion on the region's SMEs and startup culture. He was the founder of One World Communications, a fully fledged multimedia powerhouse advising governments around the world in branding and communication strategies. Later on started Leaders Middle East magazine in the UAE and had an initiative, Leaders Without Borders, that promoted young social entrepreneurs' development and power women of Arabia in debate. He's also the author of Recipes for a Better World. He may even have a second book out soon, which we might talk on. He's the CEO of Creative Zone. Please put your hands together for Lorenzo Jooris. Thank you very much, Lorenzo.
Thank you so much for the introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you.
We have spoken to a lot of people about what makes the UAE such an attractive place for a startup or an attractive place for an entrepreneur. Before we get on to all of your success, I want to go back to the start. Where did your entrepreneurial journey begin? At what point did you realize, I want to be an entrepreneur?
Thank you for that. And again, it's a pleasure to be sitting with you here today. I came to the UAE about 18, 19 years ago. And I came to the city by chance. I used to own a media company called One World Communications, and we were specialized in branding and supporting governments from around the world in helping them attract investments for tourism and for investors. And I was working in Africa quite actively, and I remember I was with the government of Tanzania, and at that time I was representing an American television station called ABC Television, and they're the ones that they were telling me, oh, American TV, it's exciting, but we were very interested in what's happening in this part of the world, which was Dubai and the UAE. And they told me, why don't you go over there and have a look for us, and what is it that you can find for us in terms of promotion, in terms of getting closer to investors there. So I did in 2005, 2006. And this is where I fell in love with the city, and I set up my first media company. It was this entity, One World Communications, and this is how I started into the entrepreneurial world that I went through.
How has the culture of being an entrepreneur changed in those 18 years from when you first came to how it is now?
I think a lot of what the UAE and Dubai had back then still remains. I think what impressed me the most was the issue of accessibility to people. I mean, it was incredible for me to see a country like the UAE and a city like Dubai, how easy it was for us or for you to approach any government official. I remember back then we were trying to meet with Hamad Bouamim, who was the CEO of the Dubai Chamber of Commerce, and I was very shocked to see how easy people were making it in terms of you know, knocking on people's doors and accessing some of these key people in the country. So that's the first thing that drew my attention. And the second thing was the high vision and the ambition plans that everybody had in this country. This is what draws many of us to firstly come here, and this is what I feel still does. You know, everyone sees in the media that we're still building the tallest towers in the world and the biggest highways and the biggest projects, and I think this is what draws a lot of people to come to the city.
Because I know, coming from my home country is Australia, and it's a bit like the UK, where if someone says they want to achieve something, everyone says, no, it'll never happen, it'll never work. Here we're in a culture of support. If people have a vision, it's supported. Do you think that's the key factor, or what are those key factors that contribute to so many entrepreneurs wanting to come to the UAE?
There is something on the ground here happening that I've never seen anywhere in the world. There is this camaraderie feeling of support. I've never seen so many different associations and business councils and accelerator programs, whether they are programs launched by the government, by seven government entities, private companies. We are involved extensively on seeing how we can support startups and entrepreneurs. So I've never seen so much access to startups and entrepreneurs that want to get to meet other startups, meet founders, meet VC funds. The amount of opportunities that there are out there, I've never seen anywhere else in the world.
And is that one of the biggest changes in the ecosystem? If you're an entrepreneur, you have that level of support, of people aren't so much seeing you as a competitor, they more see you as, if someone else is in my industry, there's an opportunity to grow the pie as well.
100%. I mean, for those out there that are entrepreneurs, you would know better than anyone else that it's key to constantly be meeting new people. Whether you might consider them, possible competitors, but there's always a way of maybe collaborating with people, working together in some shape or form. There is something always to be learned from one another. We see, even ourselves as a company, Creative Zone, we constantly have a policy of extending an arm out there to people that want to collaborate with us. Just recently, I had a gentleman reach out to me and saying that he just set up a new CSP business in Dubai, and we're all about collaboration. There are ways in which we can all work together, so there's always a win-win angle that you can discuss with people.
They're obviously one of the main positives if entrepreneurs are looking to set up a business, but what are some of the bigger challenges that entrepreneurs face in the UAE? And to be positive, in your experience with Creative Zone, how do they overcome them?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Dubai is fairly simple when it comes to how you go about setting up a business. I think traditionally the biggest pain point used to be, or could still be, a little bit, it's not the cheapest place. I mean, you can get a trade license perhaps in the UK for about £100, and it will take you a day or two for you to get a license. Here, the process is still a little bit longer, it's a little bit more tedious, and it's comparatively more expensive. So, although we made the environment very good and very, feasible for people to come into the country, still the costs of setting up a business are not, I would say, the most affordable ones. So, I know the government has been reducing a lot of their fees when it comes to, licensing fees, visa costs, but, par on par, these are still a little bit high if we were to analyze this with other destinations. Still, what is the major draw is what the market has to offer. So compared to that scenario, still the fact that you are in a bustling destination, that you have access to half of the world market, and you're 5 hours away, having the world's biggest airline, Emirates, and the best airport in the world. So that really is what attracts so many people wanting to come here, and what makes it so appealing compared to a lot of other destinations.
It certainly attracts a lot of people coming here, and I think a lot of people that have been here a while take it for granted as well. And then you try and do business in other countries, and you realise those logistical hurdles that you face. In your work, you're currently the CEO of Creative Zone. Specifically, how does Creative Zone assist entrepreneurs in trying to navigate so much of the regulation and all those logistical hurdles?
Indeed. So the UAE has done major steps in the last few years in regards to attaining to global regulation and compliance that is set up by the international community on how they like a country like the UAE to deal with regulation. And I think everyone is aware of the fact that the UAE has recently come out of the grey list, and we've had to align ourselves to a lot of the policies. Us as a CSP, we are regulated and compliant with MOE, the Ministry of Economy, in regards to our policies and procedures. When we onboard a new client, there is a whole process of compliance that needs to be overseen. Flags need to be done on suspicious activities and so on. So many of us in different fields, apart from the CSP world, have had to align to a much bigger compliance that is being put out.
I mean, there's always new rules. There's always new rules and new regulations in every sort of business in every country to sort of setting up a business. What challenges does that bring in operating an entity in this country? What do you see as some of the... I mean, you mentioned, I guess, the cost of living and the expense to set up. What are some of the other challenges to set up a business?
Yeah, I think you rightly said it in your question. It becomes a little bit more tedious for an entrepreneur and a business owner. Entrepreneurs, what's in their mind is, how do I, get up in the morning and where's my next dollar, where's my next client? You don't want to be dealing with forms and compliance and regulation, and there's so many things now to be checking on, ESR and UBO and AML policies, and so when you're running a business, you get thrown all these documents, and so it's good business for us as a CSP, because this is what we do. We help people go through all of this. We tend to make all that life easier on behalf of our clients. We are the ones trying to fill in all these forms on behalf of the clients whenever we can, and maintain and keep them abreast of the policy, the submissions of reports. Now corporate tax is in place, so there's a bit of work to be done there. So entrepreneurs want this done by someone else, right? And they pay companies like us to help them with this.
Originally, you said you came here in the 2000s. So you've seen a lot of change. You've seen the market go up. You've seen the crash in 2008. You lived through COVID, like most of us did, and saw how the UAE really came through. What trends do you think see shaping the future of startups in the UAE?
We learned quite a bit out of the 2008, 9, 10, because I think here it hit us a little bit delayed. I remember being around here 2008, and it was a major problem in the US, and I remember meeting government officials here, and they were saying, no, nothing is going on, it's not hitting us. And it took about a year for us to really say, all right, yeah, we also have a crisis. But I think we learned quite a bit out of that. We learned a lot out of COVID, but out of the financial crisis, I think what we learned back then is that a lot of investors were investing in properties, and there were no proper contracts in regards to how you're supposed to manage those projects, and the developers were a little bit taking advantage of investors in regards to they were not committed on what they were supposed to build versus the amounts of money that the investor had put in already. And so we learned a lot out of that. So a lot of regulation came from there, and we've seen, the Dubai Land Department and RERA and all these institutions really consolidate themselves into becoming proper institutions with policies and procedures that defend and look after investors. This is what is needed for attracting more. But from COVID as well, we learned a lot. I think we were very lucky that the government reacted very positively. We saw an influx of a lot of investors, and again, this was an opportunity for us to show as a country and as a city, Dubai, what we had to offer. We had all these people coming from the UK and Australia and Europe saying, oh, let's go and hang out there because there's so many restrictions and so on. And then people realized, well, I can actually live here because now this new world of working remote and living virtually allows you to be in a place where you can live, work, and play all in the same place. And this is where Dubai won massively from.
You mentioned that. How has directly, not just the golden visa, because that's been touched on by quite a lot of people, but the government have introduced a whole range of different visas not just for visit visa to look for work visa. Yeah. How has that made an impact to startups and business investment? Immensely.
I think this is the one thing that we all love about the environment that we live in. I think we're lucky to have a government that they're constantly listening to what people need, and they're so good at and fast at reacting. So they realized that in 2008, 9, 10, we learned that the major problem was that back then when the crisis came, a lot of people lost their jobs. People that lost jobs only had a month to find a new job, or you'll have to leave the country. People started feeling and saying, well, I don't really feel at home, and I don't feel that this place is... And then the government said, all right, let's change that. Let's create the visa instruments for retirees visas, for student visas, for work remote visas, of course, the golden visa. So now people feel that they're more secured. Here, something can happen tomorrow, but it doesn't mean that we all need to exit the country and go running back home. Your story, from having worked with governments, you've had experience in media, you've had a whole range of things. It must then excite you about the future of Creative Zone. It has been an absolute, if I can use sort of a Western word, a juggernaut of a business. But what does the future hold for Creative Zone? I think I met recently a few Emiratis in high government positions, and really what scared me the most is them telling me, you have no idea of yet what is to come. And they're so serious about it. And I think we're all part of this city and this country, and we're looking everything that this place has achieved, and we all feel like, okay, how much more can it get? If we kind of grasp the plans that they have, I mean, let alone, I think they're planning for Dubai to double its population by 2040, right? That's 25 years from now. Honestly, the type of plans that they still have ahead, it's incredible. We all know about the casinos and what Ras Al Khaimah is looking to do. UAE, Abu Dhabi has its own agenda of things. I think there's a lot of optimism out there of what is yet to come, and I would say to all the entrepreneurs and people that are in business, keep on going, because it will only get better. And people that have already been established and set up, 10 years from now, they're going to be in another playing field that they can only imagine. And this is what happened to companies like us at Creative Zone. We started this business in 2010, and little could we dream that we were going to be helping 75,000 people set up their businesses in the country, get their visas, and the volumes that we see on a weekly, monthly basis. I mean, us as a business, we approximately set up something like 200 new companies a month, which is unheard of. We never thought that we would be doing this kind of volumes. We are in connection with the work that a lot of the free zones are doing. I know that you had one of the representatives, the DG of the Ajman Free Zone earlier. I mean, these free zones are doing 900, 1,000 setups a month individually. You put them all together. So what is happening in the business landscape in the UAE, it's unprecedented.
Yeah, and I think that feeds into, you know, the success, the culture, also that it's not just a business for business sake. You're giving people the chance to live out their business dreams. You know, and 75,000 is a huge success story. And one of the ways you've often give back is writing books. You had the first book, Recipes for a Better World, and now you've got a new book that's going to be coming out soon, which I think is quite inspiring. It's going to be Thrive 100 Principles for Life, or
Correct.
Principles to Live?
For life.
For life.
Yeah.
So where did the idea for this book come from?
This comes of years of reading on these topics, being a little bit passionate about this. I've done several workshops, and I attended many of these type of sessions. And I always felt that there was something not fully there. And one day I remember about 2 years ago, I woke up and I said to myself, you know what, I'm going to make my own list of 100 principles, you know, after reading the 7 Habits of Successful People.
Can you give us an example of a few of them?
I give you a better idea. You can download the book free of cost. It's on a website, www.youthrive.ae. And you can just put your email there and you get a digital copy. I received in the morning my first 1,000 printed books, and we're going to put them out. It's not something that I'm going to be looking to make money from massively. I think everybody knows as an author, you barely cover your expenses for printing your book. But we look to engage with people that share similar thoughts on these topics. We'll do some workshops, and this is a way of connecting again.
Yeah, and a great way of giving back. And I think that, you know, you often talk about, people often do, and it's a very popular one on social media, to say, what do people on their deathbed say about giving back, not working as hard and traveling more and not worrying as much. They're sort of the principles we're looking at here.
There is a one chapter called the deathbed exercise, and we tend to ask you to reflect on what would you think people on your final hours will say to you about how you feel. And I have a very personal approach to this that is a little bit different to
please share.
No, it's difficult to share because it has a swear word in between, and it's not to be put out. But the last chapter is the interesting one. It talks about, it's called at the end of the road, it all makes sense. I think we all have this big question mark in us, with uncertainty and worry and anxiety that many of us go through. But at the end of the road, there was a study done that shows that in the majority of cases, people tend to feel satisfied about the life that they have lived.
Thank you very much for your time this afternoon.
Thank you so much for having us.
A round of applause for Lorenzo. He's been great, hasn't he?